Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 14. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paribrajakachaja Astotara Sata Shri Srimadesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Primsaka Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 14. Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadana sambhavaha yagnad bhavati parjanyo yagnya karma samudbhavaha Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadana sambhavaha Yajnad bhavati parjanyo yagnya karma samudbhavaha Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadana sambhavaha Yajnad bhavati parjanyo yagnya karma samudbhavaha Anat from grains bhavanti grow bhutani the material bodies Parjanyat from rains, Anna food grains, Sambhavaha or made possible, Yajnat from the performance of sacrifice. Bhavati becomes possible. Parjanya rains. Yajna performance of. Yajna. Karma prescribed duties. Samudbhavaha born of. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Purport. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great commentator on the Bhagavad Gita, writes as follows: Ye indradi anga taya vashtitam yajnam sarveshanam Vishnu mabhyarichya tatchesham anantitena tadhya yantran sampadayanti te shanta sarveshvarasya bhakta sarvakil vishahir anadir kala vivriddhair atmanubhava pratibandhakair nikilai papair vimuchyante. The Supreme Lord, who is known as Yajna Purusha, or the personal beneficiary of all sacrifices, is the master of all demigods who serve him, as the different limbs of his body serve the whole, as the different limbs of the body serve the whole. Demigods like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, etc. are appointed officers who manage material affairs, and the Vedas direct sacrifices to satisfy these demigods so that they may be pleased to supply air, light, and water sufficiently to produce food grains. When Lord Krishna is worshipped, the demigods who are different limbs of the body of the Lord are also automatically worshipped. Therefore, there is no separate need to worship the demigods. For this reason, the devotees of the Lord who are in Krishna consciousness offer food to Krishna and then eat, a process which nourishes the body spiritually. By such action, not only are past sinful reactions of the body vanquished, but the body becomes immunized to all contaminations of material nature. When there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects the person from the attack of such an epidemic. Similarly, food offered to the Lord Vishnu and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection. And one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness who eats only food offered to Krishna can counteract all reactions of past material infections, which are impediments to the progress of self-realization. On the other hand, one who does not do so continues to increase the volume of sinful action, and this prepares the next body to resemble a hog or a dog, to suffer the resultant reactions of all sins. The material world is full of contaminations, and one who is immunized by accepting prasadam of the Lord, food offered to Vishnu, is saved from the attack, whereas one who does not do so becomes subjected to contamination. Food grains or vegetables are factually eatables. The human being eats different kinds of food grains, vegetables, fruits, etc., and the animals eat the refuse of the food grains and vegetable grass, plants, etc. Human beings who are accustomed to eating meat and flesh are also depend on the production of vegetation in order to eat the animals. Therefore, ultimately, we have to depend on the production of the field and not on the production of big factories. The field production is due to sufficient rain from the sky, and such reigns are controlled by demigods like Indra, sun, moon, etc. And they are all servants of the Lord. The Lord can be satisfied by sacrifice. Therefore, one who cannot perform them will find himself in scarcity. That is the law of nature. Yajna, specifically the Sankirtan Yajna, prescribed for this age, must therefore be performed to save us at least from scarcity of food supply. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anasambhavaha yajna bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhavaha. So here in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna continues to give us very basic, very important information. The Bhagavad Gita, it is like a sugar cane. No matter which side you bite, it is sweet. You may read the beginning of the Gita, the middle of the end, but throughout the Gita, Krishna gives perfect, unparalleled advice based on truth. So here he says, Annad bhavanti bhutani. Who can argue with that? That the bhutani, the living entities, the body, depend on food grains. Without food grains, you cannot maintain the body. Krishna doesn't say build a factory. He says grow food, anna, grow rice, wheat, corn. I remember in my childhood, on a small farm in Italy, we grew, our main crop was maize. And from the maize, the corn, we would take the corn, we would grind it, make a flour, and with the flour we would make polenta. And the leaves from the corn cob, they were used to make mattresses and pillows. And the actual corn cob itself were used for fuel to burn in the stove. So nothing was wasted. And in this way, the rest of the corn plant, when it was harvested, it was ground up and given to the cows and horses to eat. Nothing went to waste. So, although the Bhagavad Gita is so important and so much full of knowledge, still, people are reluctant to read it, and even if they read it, they misinterpret it. They don't, because there is one quality you must have if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita. And that quality is, you got to understand you're a spirit soul. You got to realize you're not the body. Then you can break the knot of ignorance and you can actually understand the Bhagavad Gita, because it doesn't speak to the body, it speaks to the soul. The Bhagavad Gita is meant for those who are interested in spiritual advancement. If we are simply living to satisfy the senses, we are not better than two-legged animals. Now the animals, bless them, they cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. They don't have the facility. Why? Because by nature they are completely absorbed in satisfying their senses. Even some animals that can be domesticated, like cows and horses, dogs and cats, sheep, goat, pigs, they can live with human beings, they can cooperate with human beings, but most animals live wild in the forest. They cannot be domesticated. You cannot bring them into the house. They will not tolerate it. They are so much absorbed in their own world, you cannot break that absorption. A human being who is, after all, a rational animal, if he is absorbed in satisfying his senses, then there is no room to understand spiritual life. Krishna doesn't speak to someone who is interested in expanding material facilities. Prabhupada commented that you may build your factories and make nuts and bolts, but you cannot live, you cannot eat nuts and bolts. You cannot eat consumer goods. Food comes from the land. Therefore, annad bhavanti bhutani. And parjanyat anasambhavaha. The food grains depend on rain, and rain comes when you perform sacrifice. And sacrifice comes when you do your duties according to being a spiritual being. If you do your duty according to being a material being, if you do your duties only in absorption of sense gratification, that is not yajna. That is a challenge to the order of God. And if you challenge God, you cannot expect a positive result, because we are tiny and insignificant. We don't understand the nature of the creation. Therefore, Krishna, later on in the Gita, he says, Annad bhavanti bhutani, chaturvarnyam maya shishram guna karma vibhagashaha. That I have created the four division, guna karma, according to quality and work. Chatur varnyam. What are these varnyams? The brahmanas, the kshatriyas, the vaishyas, and the shudras. These are the four classes of man. And these four classes are created by Krishna. Therefore, they are present everywhere. The first class, it is like a pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, you have the intellectual class, the brahmanas. A brahmana means one who is interested in knowledge, one who is interested in truth, one who is not interested in illusion. He understands the spiritual nature, and he simply works to develop the spirituality, because the spirituality is the actual identity of the person. Me, I am not the body, I am me, I am spirit. Therefore, one who understands fully that he is spirit is called a brahmana. Because a brahmana is interested in knowledge, is interested in teaching, is interested in becoming free from the cycle of birth and death. Because obviously, if we are not the body, what is the point of accepting body after body, life after life? And there is no guarantee which body you will get. What is the point of going into the cycle of birth and death? No, Brahmana understands I am spirit, and if I live my life spiritually, according to the instructions of Krishna, according to the instructions of Vedic knowledge, or any spiritual instruction, then I can make progress towards becoming free from the cycle of birth and death. The only thing that keeps us in the cycle of birth and death is a desire to stay in it. By creating activities, by creating reactions to activities which force us to take birth after birth. So, Krishna says that he created these four groups, the brahmanas, the next group are the administrators. The administrators or the kshatriyas, they are interested in power. And all over the world you have people interested in power. Politicians, military men, they want to be in control. Then the third group are the vaishyas, who are interested in wealth, land, money, business. And then the fourth group were the working class. These four groups are everywhere present. But Krishna says, Vidi kartaram apimam, vidi akartaram avyayam. That even though I have created these four divisions of human society, I am not bound by that. When Krishna comes, he may take birth as a king in a kshatriya family, in a royal family. He may take birth as a brahmana in a brahmana family, but he is not a king or a brahmana. He is beyond the designations of the body. In fact, Krishna's body is none different to himself. That's why Krishna never forgets. When Arjuna asked Krishna that, how can I understand that millions of years ago you taught Bhagavad Gita to the sun god? And Krishna said, you and I have had many, many, many births. Bahuni me yati tani jammani tava Arjuna. Myself and you, we have had many, many births. Veda Sarvani, I know them all, not Tvam Veta Parantapa. But you, O dear Arjuna, even though you're a powerful, Parantapa means powerful warrior, you have forgotten your previous births. The reason that Krishna remembers all his previous births is that because he doesn't change his body. And we forget our previous births because we change our bodies. So Krishna has created these 4 divisions of life. Why? Because they are meant to educate the human beings to understand their spiritual identity. Taking birth as a human being is very, very important. Because taking birth as an animal, there is no possibility of understanding your spiritual identity. You cannot teach an animal about spiritual life. They don't have the power to hear. But human beings, they do. They are given that chance. Therefore, from the very beginning, one should be taught that he is not the body, he is a spirit soul, and the purpose of life is to transcend the material universe and go back into the spiritual world. One great authority in this line is Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, as a child, even within the womb of his mother, he was hearing spiritual instructions from Narada Muni, because his mother was living in the ashram of Narada Muni. So Narada Muni was speaking about spiritual life, and the child in the womb, he became realized even before he was born. And even as a child, he remarked that from the very earliest age, Komara Acharet Pragyo Dharman Bhagavatam Iya, that from the childhood one should be taught Dharma Bhagavata, Bhagavad Dharma, or our relationship with God, should be taught how to engage himself in the service of God as a spirit soul. Because human life is very short. Tadapi adruvam arthadam. It is also meant to give us spiritual enlightenment. There is no other reason to live. For a human being, the reason to live is to understand spirituality. But look at us. We're living in a society which is the exact opposite. From childhood, one is taught that the purpose of life is to enjoy his senses. That the more you acquire, then the more successful you are. The problem with this program is that you may enjoy your senses in this life, but at the end of this life, the bill will be presented. You may go to a restaurant and you may eat and drink and enjoy, but at the end of the evening, they will bring you the bill to pay. If you don't pay the bill, then you will suffer. You will end up washing dishes for several days to pay off your debt. In the same way, we are enjoying in this material universe, we are enjoying the property which belongs to God. We are enjoying, and we are becoming thieves because we are enjoying without His permission. We are enjoying against His instructions, against His advice. And therefore, when we come to the moment of death, because we accumulated so much debt, we accumulated so much karma, so much bad karma which we have to repay, that will mean we'll take another birth. If we live only to satisfy the senses, as it is advised in present-day society, then we will lose this human birth. The only reason we have a human birth is to utilize this birth in understanding our spiritual nature. If we don't utilize this birth to understand our spiritual nature, we will lose this birth, because to enjoy sense gratification, you don't need a human birth. If you want to enjoy eating whatever you want, having sex with whomever you want, then better you take birth as a pig. At least in that birth, there is no restrictions. So, Annat bhavanti bhutani. This is Krishna's advice. Grow food grains. Depend upon God. The beauty of depending upon God is that if you actually practice that, then God will provide everything we need. And in the purport of this verse, Prabhupada comments that just as the expert physician prescribes a vaccine so that person will not become affected by a disease, similarly, we have our own vaccine. Nowadays, there is a lot of talk about whether we should be vaccinated or not. But actually, devotees of Krishna are vaccinated by taking Krishna Prasad. That is the vaccine. That vaccine is highly recommended for everyone. By taking the mercy of Krishna, we tap into the unlimited Lord, to the unlimited, omnipotent, omniscient, unlimited Purnam, totally full. Krishna is Purnam. Purnamada Purnamidam. Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya. If you take the Purna, Avyayam, it remains Purna. Purna means full. Krishna is full, and whatever you take from Krishna, it remains full. He can provide anything. Therefore, if we take everything we see as Krishna Prasad, why should Krishna not provide for us? I remember as a child, from our village, we were living on the foothills of the Alps, many forests and mountains. So in the summer months, we would go for camping or hikes into the forest, and it was a most beautiful atmosphere with the trees and wild strawberries and cashew nut and chestnuts and so many wild animals and clean streams, beautiful vegetation. It used to be such a pleasure to get away from the village, from the mechanics and machinery of living material life, and going into the forest. It was considered a great blessing. And indeed, if we see in Krishna's life, he lives at the summit of elegance and style, not in the city, but in the forests of Vrindavan. In fact, when Krishna was living in Dwarka, him and Balaram and Subhadra, they came to Kurukshetra during the time of a solar eclipse. And at the same time, the inhabitants of Vrindavan also came there. When Srimati Radharani saw Krishna, she said, "You are the same Krishna who stole my heart as a young girl. I am the same Radharani, and my feelings for you have not changed. But here you're surrounded by chariots and military men and soldiers and elephants and horses, a lot of noise, and it is not pleasing to me. I want to see you again. Come back to our Vrindavan, where you can play the flute on the banks of the Jamuna River, where there is beautiful forests and trees." So Krishna has the potency to change this terrible material world in which we live in into Vaikuntha. Simply, we have to take his prasadam. So, take Krishna Prasad. Krishna Prasad is not only food offered to Krishna, but everything offered to Krishna. The devotee's vision is, because I am eternally connected with Krishna, everything is connected with him. Whatever I do, whatever I see. And because everything is connected with him, if you have this consciousness, everything becomes Krishna Prasad. And that is the real vaccine. That is the real protection for the disease of material life. Don't think, if I get my body healthy, that I have succeeded in the scope of my life. No. You have succeeded in the goal of your life when you become free from birth and death. And there is only one person who can free you from birth and death, and that is Krishna. Thank you very much. So, we have Atma Vidya with us. Good evening and Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for participating. And Anna Maria Monchada, Hare Krishna, my obeisances to all assembled devotees. Thank you for mentioning about the best vaccine for the devotees, Krishna Prasadam. That was amazing. Hare Krishna. It's a fact. Krishna, Aham Aushadam, he says, I am the healing herb. Thank you very much, and please continue to comment, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Haribol.